Hey, welcome to another KIELive.
Hey, Karina, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine. What about you, Porcelli?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
Oh,
And I'm,
that's
I'm more excited because today the topic that we have, it's very exciting to me.
so. I wonder why it's exciting to you, especially.
Well, we've been talking about DMN, we've been talking about trusty, we've been talking about the capabilities that we have in Kogito. We've been talking a lot. But today, I think we'll have a demo or a presentation that will blend out together and show live how things work.
Exactly. So, Trusty AI is one of the initiatives that is being run by the experts that are working on the key under the key umbrella on the key umbrella projects, and it is aimed toward improving the way we deal with AI, explainability, and many other things around decisions and processes. So we've talked about this in the past, and we have another KIELive all focused on this topic. But for today, we have Jacopo on the backstage. Let me bring him already.
Of
And
course.
hey, Jacopo, all good?
Hello. All good,
Jacopo
thanks.
has been a developer for already more than 5 years, and he's one of the experts working on the Trusty AI initiative. He's going to show us the whole journey on where do we start when we only have data and we actually want to create intelligent decisions instead of simply creating repetitive decisions that doesn't have any intelligence, right, Jacopo?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great introduction. Thank you very much.
And
You're stealing my job.
I see that you are going to use like PMML, DMN, so you are going to use different standards and connect them in order to achieve this goal, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I will start from the data, and then we will demonstrate quickly how to create a machine learning model with the data and how to export this machine learning model into PMML. And then I will demonstrate how to create a Kogito application in order to deploy this machine learning model and how to integrate it with trusty AI. So it's a very end-to-end journey. So from the data to the end application.
So I think that from everything you mentioned, we have many different types of persona. Will you also explain the differences of them and like how they interact?
Yeah, exactly. So I have a very quick introduction in my slides. We will start very soon. But absolutely, we have different personas, and in particular, Trusty AI is focusing on auditing, for example, and monitoring. So in this very moment, we provide two tools, one for monitoring and one for auditing. And yeah, I will show you during the
Looking forward
presentation.
to it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see.
So should we get started? Do you have anything else to add, Porcelli?
No, just eager to see.
So let's go for it. Jacopo will be
Great.
on the backstage, okay? So
Yep.
just one more thing before you start. If you were watching, you already know that we are always looking forward for questions, discussions on the chat. So you're more than welcome to share any thoughts, any questions you have on the chat, okay? Okay, Jacopo.
Super. So let's start. As I said, this is an end-to-end scenario. So this is an example. Let's assume that in your company you have an R&D team, a platform team, and some auditors. So actually, the users of your services. And actually, it's very common, I would say, in some large companies, or at least from my experience, that the teams are divided by skills. So you have your R&D team, which is composed by very good scientists, for example. And then there is the platform team, which is composed by very good software engineers. And actually, in those two teams, there are not people with cross-functional skills. So, for example, in the R&D team, there are not many software engineers. And in the platform team, there are not data scientists, for example. So there is always a little bit of pain when these two teams have to work together. Of course, this is not valid for every company. Of course, this is just a scenario, and take it as a joke or anyway as a very high-level scenario. And, you know, when it comes to machine learning, usually the model is created by an R&D team. And it's sometimes difficult to bring into to production. And so the conversation might look like the following. So, hey, we have a new machine learning model, platform team, what do you think? And they do not have any experience with that. So what should we do? And the R&D team has a very big Python script with, I don't know, 10K lines of code. And, you know, it's not production ready. So there are some integrations to do. And, you know, in large companies, it might take months and a lot of pain and money, of course. And then on the auditor side, there is always a problem because their interface usually is the platform team, because they are responsible for to deliver the service and then maintain the service. But actually, they're not responsible on the functional side. They are only responsible on the operational side. But sometimes they are the first person that they reach out, right? Because they deploy the service. So the platform team doesn't have any experience or any knowledge of the machine learning model they've got. So they cannot really reply to the auditors. And now let's see how Kogito can help on that side. So first of all, let's establish a communication channel between the R&D team and the platform team, which is PMML, for example, and DMN. So very roughly speaking, what is PMML? PMML is a markup language, so it's a standard, and it's simply an XML file at the end of the day. So you can train your machine learning model with Python, with R, with many languages, and then for every language, there is a library to export your machine learning model into XML. So as I said, PMML. And then there are many other libraries as well to take this PMML model and do stuff and import it again. So it's just a way to serialize your machine learning model and take it back afterwards. And so if the R&D team can export the PMML file, it can simply pass it to the platform team. And with Kogito, we have a very good integration with PMML and DMN. So the platform team can simply create a new Kogito application and deploy it. And regarding the auditor side, the platform team doesn't provide real answers to the auditors, but it can provide tools for the auditors. So, for example, with trusty AI. So Kogito is not only about creating an application and deploy it, but it comes with a set of tools, or anyway, a set of capabilities that can help some other personas, for example, auditing and monitoring. So, of course, this is just an example scenario. And what I'm going to present in this demonstration is not only related to this scenario. So you can also have your startup or your team with different skills in the team. And this demonstration applies everywhere because we start from the data to the deployed application. And it doesn't really matter what is your underlying situation in your company or in your team. So this is just an A-level overview, or anyway, an example scenario. And also because I had some fun creating those slides, because from my experience, this happened. And yeah, if we have some time later, I can also spend a little bit more words on that. But yeah, let's move forward. So the journey, we will start from the data, as I said. Then we will create a machine learning model. We will export the machine learning model in PMML format. Then we will create a DMN model that uses the PMML and add some more logic on it, on top of it. Then we will create the Kogito application, create the Docker image, and deploy it with the trusty AI infrastructure. And then we will play a little bit with it. So let's start. So I've created, actually, yeah, let me mention this. I've created a repository with all the resources. So if you look on GitHub under my username from data to Kogito demo, you will find all the resources that I'm going to use in this demonstration, together with a README with all the steps that I will cover in this demonstration. So yeah. So let's start. In my project here, I said that we have to start with the data. So let's have a look at the data set that we have got. Our scenario is about the mortgage. So we will create an application to estimate the risk on a given request, mortgage request. So we have the data set, and it doesn't really matter how this data set is generated. Actually, I provide also a script to generate the data. So if you want to have a look at it, you can open the repository and have a look. But yeah, this is the data set that we have got. And we put the ad of the data scientist for the time being. So we see that our data set has the age information, the monthly salary information, the total asset, the total amount of money that the person is requiring, and then the number of installments. And then we have the response variable, so the risk. So the first 5 features are the inputs, and then the last one is the response variable, so the variable that we would like to infer. And it's quite a big data set, but it doesn't really matter in this very moment. So let's see how we train the machine learning model. So I've created a very simple R script, and it's simply reading the file, the data set, and then it's creating the formula, and then it's simply training a machine learning model. A small disclaimer, of course, this is not how you should do data science. And I'm assuming that you are a little bit familiar with data science, and yeah, this is not the way you do data science, because first of all, you should analyze the data, you should make some plots, anyway, making some static analysis, then you should start with some machine learning models, split the data set into training set and test set, and so forth and so on. But for the sake of the demo, this is not really important. So we just want to demonstrate how we created the machine learning model and how we export it. So yeah, this is a disclaimer. So take it as it is. It is not how you should do data science, okay? So here we train our machine learning model, which is a random forest model with 3 trees. And then you see here that we simply save the XML after converting into PMML. And here I'm using a particular library, which is open source and available for everybody, which is called PMML. And as I said at the very beginning, in every modern language, we have a library that allow you to export your machine learning model into PMML. So it comes for free.
Yeah, Jacopo, sorry to interrupt, but building on top of what you're just saying,
yeah,
that's a very common thing that we hear is like, oh, PMML, how I do that? But it's usually like, you don't do PMML, you export PMML, right?
Exactly. And, you know, sometimes people are a little bit, not afraid, but anyway, you know, XML is not, it's just a way to serialize your model, right? And as you said, it's just a tool that you have to serialize the model. And it's not really, I don't know, because in the past I heard somebody that didn't like PMML because, I don't know, it's an old standard.
Old. Yeah, exactly. It
doesn't really matter at the end, because it's just a way to serialize your model, and it's completely transparent for you. You will never open it, right? So you just export it, and then you will use another library to import it again. So you don't even open it, right? So
yeah, thank you for clarification. I think that's a very key aspect. Like so many times I heard like, why PMML? It's like just a way to export, and that's, by the way, is the standard that we can rely upon.
Exactly.
All tools are exporting these days. So thank you very much. So move on.
No, thank you very much. So yeah, this is how we train the machine learning model and how we export it. So let's run it. So we just run R script with train.r, and now the script is executing and it's exporting the PMML. And in the meanwhile, let's see what is the next step. So we already covered a couple of steps. So we export the model in PMML format, and the next step is to add some DMN logic on top of it. And in order to do that, I will use Business Central Editor. So it's very easy also here to start the Business Central Editor, because you can use the container that we provide. So you can simply run Docker run with the Docker image of Business Central. So it will take, I don't know, 20 seconds, 30 seconds to start. But yeah, we have just to wait a little bit. And in the meanwhile, here, the PMML file was exported, and we can simply see that it's an XML file, as I said. And now let's open Business Central. We can make it. In the meanwhile, if there is any question, feel free to interrupt me, and I will pick some questions if there is any.
Okay, I have one.
Yeah, super.
David William asked in the chat, what are pros and cons of coupling the machine learning model lifecycle to the lifecycle of the business decision?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. That's the yeah, well, I think, at least this my personal opinion, that if you add some more logic, so business logic on top of PMML, then it becomes only one thing. So it's not only about the machine learning model. So it's like a library at the end. So you build, you in your project, you use libraries, right? So in your project, you can use different library versions. And here I see it a little bit like this. So your business automation project can use different machine learning model versions. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is how I see it. Of course, I don't know. What do you think?
No, I also replied that in the chat that you don't have to at the same time. You can externalize and invoke an external service. Yeah, and you have the same capability. It depends. Like the traditional, it depends.
Yeah.
Also, would people be able to use the trusty AI capabilities that you will show today if we do not have it integrated with DMN, Jacopo?
So can you repeat the question, please?
If we do not integrate PMML with DMN, would people still be able to use the trusty AI capabilities like the console that you're going to show?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So this is a demonstration that uses PMML together with DMN, but you can also use only DMN, for example. So this
Okay.
is just a more complex scenario that uses both, but actually you can also use just DMN.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I think you can
Yeah, I will move
try
forward.
that.
Thanks. So here we simply have to log in with admin credentials. Yeah, Chrome alerts, fun. Okay, design. Unfortunately, screen sharing is making it's lagging a little bit. So here I create my space. Then we simply create a project and we call it my mortgage. And now we have to import the asset we created. So the PMML model. So here we click on import assets and we call it risk random forest. We select the file and you see here that we have the risk random forest. Super. And this is a small manual step. So we have to use the PMML version 4.2. So we have to modify it by hand because the R library is using 4.4 and Business Central accept 4.2. So let's save it. Super. And then we download it. Okay. Then we go back to the project and we import a DMN model. So I've already prepared it, but I will quickly show it. So we call it my mortgage. And we select the DMN model that is available under the resources of my repository. So let's have a look at it. So it's a very simple DMN model, and we have 3 inputs, which is applicant, and it's a structure, T applicant. Then we have the financial situation, which is, again, a structure. Okay, which is, again, a structure, and then the mortgage request. And of course, let's see how they are structured. So we have the applicant structure, which contains the first name, the last name, and then the age. Then we have the financial situation of the requester, and it includes the monthly salary and the total assets, so the total amount of money that he has. And then the mortgage request, so the total amount of money that he requires together with the number of installments. And of course, you see here that we have a mapping with our machine learning model that we created. So like the age, like the total required, and so on and so forth. Now we have to link the PMML model that we imported. And in order to do that, we click on included models. For the sake of the demo, I will remove the existing one. So here we include the model and we select the risk random forest. We provide a unique name, and then we go into the BKM function. We select the machine learning model and the random forest model. And you see here that automatically it figures out what are the inputs of this BKM function. So we specify that the inputs are numbers. Then we go back. And in order to use the BKM function, we need a decision. And you see here what are the inputs of our BKM function. So we pick up the age from the applicant, then the monthly salary from this financial situation, together with the total assets, and then the total required and the number of installments. And at the very beginning, I said, yeah, let's use DMN to put some more logic on top of the PMN model. So here you see that the risk score is the input of this decision, which is mortgage approval. So let's have a look at it. So it's very simple. If the risk score is below 40, then the mortgage is approved. Otherwise, it's not approved. So we just put a very simple decision on top of our PMM model to predict the risk score of the applicant. So we are done. So let's download it. Perfect. And now we have to create the Kogito application. If you want to use the Quarkus Quick Start, you can simply Google for Quarkus Kogito Quick Start and go to the Quarkus page and use the Maven archetype to create your simple Kogito your Kogito project. So let's do it. I open here my editor and we run it. Oops. Probably I didn't delete it. Okay. Okay. So I will open the project with IntelliJ. And now, in order to use PMML together with the trusty infrastructure, we have to add a couple of dependencies. And those dependencies are available in the README of the repository. And I'll paste them here in the
Jacopo,
prompt.
could you increase the font, please?
Oh, sure. 1 sec. Okay. So here you see that I've imported the tracing decision add-on, which is needed by TrustAI. Then the Kogito PMML, and in this particular demo, I'm using the implementation of JPMML, just to demonstrate that you can use our implementation of PMML, but you can also plug any PMML, so you can plug the JPMML library as well. And here I'm also using the monitoring add-on to use Grafana dashboards. So let's go to, whoops, 1 sec. Now we just have to yeah, sorry, here I cannot increase the font, but
It's okay, don't worry about it.
yeah, I don't have to show any more codes or anyway strings. So here I downloaded the resources that I created and updated with Business Central, and I just need to copy and paste them under the resource folder of the Kogito application. So I copied them under the resource folder, and the last thing that I have to do is to use a Quarkus property to include the Swagger UI. So, and that's it. So we are ready to package the application because Kogito will do everything, all the rest for us. So it was very simple. So we created the project, we copied the resources under the resources folder, and that added a couple of dependencies, and that's it. So let's go to the terminal and let's package the application with Maven. And the next step is to create a Docker image.
So I guess you will have to create the Docker image just because you want to couple this application with other components. But if you already wanted to use it as is, the jar file would already expose the endpoints for DMN, for PMML, and also like individually and working together, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm using, now I would like to create a Docker image just to make it more easy to deploy it with all the other tools. Because at the end, when you have your Docker image, you can deploy it everywhere, right? So you can deploy it to Azure, to AWS, to OpenShift, to any cloud platform.
Perfect.
And yeah, it makes the development and also the deployment to production very easy, because the environment, your local environment, is also your production environment. So you can simply test it and deploy it very easy.
Yeah.
Also because I will integrate with the trusty infrastructure, so I need a Docker image. But yeah, as I said, as you said, of course, you can directly use the jar file. Now, in order to create the Docker image, I simply run Docker build with the path to the Docker file. And if you use the Quarkus archetype, your project will also include some Docker files under the resource main Docker folder. And then I specify also the tag of the image. So let's run it. And the image was successfully tagged. Now the next step is to deploy the Docker image together with the trusty infrastructure. And in order to do that, we already provide a Docker Compose file to deploy your Kogito application together with the trusty infrastructure very easily. So just open the Kogito examples GitHub repository, scroll down to trusty demonstration here. Then you see here, we have a demonstration that uses Docker Compose and one other that uses Kubernetes. Docker Compose is much more easy because you don't need a Kubernetes cluster. And yeah, just clone the Kogito examples, check out to release. So for example, here, I'm using 1.8. And then the next step is to edit the Docker Compose file under the Kogito app service. Because if you look at the repository here, we have a placeholder. Here you see Quay with your namespace with this Docker image. It doesn't really matter. So you have just to replace this string with the Docker tag you just created. So let's do it. And it's already my tag, I think. So let's try. Yeah, it's already the same. So I just save it and start it with Docker Compose up. Because everything is already wired, so you don't have to do anything else. Just copy and paste the string and the services will start automatically. Now we are ready to open this Docker UI. Oops. So the Kogito application will be running under the port 8080 of localhost. Takes a while to start. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I didn't stop the. Why is it Business Central still running? Okay, perfect. it was a cache problem. Okay, so here we have all the endpoints that were automatically generated by Kogito. And you see here that we have a post endpoint for our mortgage DMN model. So here, let's play a little bit with the API. So for example, let's say that my monthly salary is $2,000, I don't know. Then my total asset is $10,000. And then I request, let's say, $40,000 with 100 installments. And then I put my name, my surname, and then my age, and then my email. Super. Let's execute the request. And we see here that the risk score was 52 and my mortgage was not approved. Now, the auditor might say, hey, why the mortgage was not approved for this guy? We can have a look at the audit UI, which is running under the port 1338. And this is the trusty console. So we executed one request, and we see here that we have one request. We can open it, and we see all the outcomes of the model, for example. So the risk score and the outcome for the mortgage approval. We can have a look at the outcome details and also at the explanation. So for example, here we see the top feature score chart. And actually, we see that the total asset was the most influencing input for this decision. So let's try to change a little bit the total asset and see if we can get my mortgage approved. So let's go here, and I don't know, let's put it 30,000. Still not approved. So let's try it 25. Still nothing. But we can also have a look again. And yeah, you can have a look and start playing with it, right? So let's try with 20,000. Still nothing, but yeah, you can play a little bit. Of course, I trained the machine learning model a little bit with random data. So now I'm trying, okay, this mortgage was approved. So last thing is the monitoring part. Yeah, another thing is that you can also have a look at the single inputs for your requests, as well as the model. So in the trusty console, you can have a look directly at the model. Here you see what is the model that was used for this particular request. Now let's go to the Grafana dashboards. And here you see we provide two kinds of dashboards. One is regarding the domain space, and the other one, the operational space. So you see here that we have the decision mortgage decision, and you can monitor how many loans or how many mortgage were approved or not approved, for example. And if we look at the operational dashboard, you see the total amount of requests that were made to your Kogito application. Of course, here it's 184 because I tested it a few hours ago, and I put a little bit of load onto the services. So you see that a few hours ago I did some loads, as well as the execution time for the endpoint, and also the exception details, if there was any exception on your endpoints. So I think that this is it. So
Jacopo,
yeah.
Here on the audit investigation, is it possible to see the request payload on the
Yes,
of
it's
this?
possible. So yeah, not so we send JSON right to the endpoints, and here in the trusty console you don't see actually the payload, but you can see here the input data, which is of course corresponding to the payload that you sent, but not you will not get the JSON form, but you will see here every structure, so all the object that you sent, the original request. So for example, here the financial situation, the monthly salary, and etc., and the applicant data. You see here all the data that I have used in the request. So absolutely, you can keep track of the original inputs as well as the intermediate outcomes, for example, the risk score and also the mortgage approval.
Okay. Because the question that the guys are bringing up here is exactly this one. Like, we invoke a DMN and it creates an audit with a random ID. So let's say I invoke it 10 times. How do I know which is which? So basically, based on the input data, would that be it?
So here you see that every time so if you are using the tracing decision add-on, if I'm not wrong, you will get here in the response headers what is the execution ID for this request. So here you see that this is the execution ID. So let's go to the trusty console. Here you see that here 38F5, it's the same, right? 38F5 and etc. So you can correlate every time you create a request with the request that you will get on the trusty console.
Do you know if this is already customizable today?
So as far as I know, nope. But yeah, it's a good point at the end. So
perfect. Thank you.
No, thank you very much for the question.
That's a great demo.
It's an important feedback, you know. So we are looking also to improve it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So is there more things you want to show on the demo, or are you?
So actually, no. I think that this is it. So just to recap, you can have a look at the repository that is under my GitHub account. And yeah, if you have any question, you can reach out to me directly on Zulip or also in the issues of the repository. So we have many channels. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me directly, also by email. So I'm available.
Thank you very much, Jacopo. I think it was great. Like we saw end-to-end from data to deployment. It was amazing. Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Jacopo, for your participation. Looking forward to see you later here again.
Thank you for having me.
So thank you for being here with us today and learning a little bit more about how you can create intelligent decisions, going directly from data to the actual deployment and auditing of everything that is happening in the black box project.
Yeah, it was great to see the trusted console and see that we can expect great feedback in terms of especially this from Arun, the audit perspective would be great if you have a business key. I think it's a good feedback to bring to the team. And yes, I think it's very exciting to have all these capabilities in Kogito.
Awesome. So for the next week, we will learn a little bit more about cloud native CI/CD for business automation applications. So stay tuned and see you here next week. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.